Ludwig?
Oh, she came. Wow. Thank you.
I'm here.
Now we need Stafford.
Stafford's going to be late,
Okay, but he's
Yeah.
coming, right?
but he is coming, yep. Are we ready to go now then?
We are live.
Okay, thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this special meeting of council for February 8, 2022, being held electronically, the time being 3 p.m., and acknowledging that we are meeting on the unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. The purpose of today's meeting is to consider the code of conduct, the draft code of conduct for council, and that is the single agenda item that we have on today's meeting and the focus of the meeting. So I will call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Because of the nature of this meeting, being a special council meeting, wouldn't normally have inquiries, but I guess if people actually want to ask a question about the code of conduct before we consider it, I would entertain that. So if there are people on there who have inquiries about the code of conduct, please make yourself known to the corporate officer, and we'll proceed from there.
If you have a question for council, please raise your hand. Mayor Beamish, no hands are raised.
Thank you very much. So we'll go then on to administrative reports. We have a fairly lengthy report on the code of conduct with material that's been provided over time. And I'll refer then to the Director of Corporate and Legislative Services to introduce this topic. And this is item 4.1.
Good afternoon, everyone. This has been before council before, and you will see that I've attached the previous report to my staff report dated today. And that's the report that's dated June 15th. And the thing that has changed since then is that we have had a finishing strong session on September 28th with Tracy Lawrenson. And following that, there was some further feedback from council that is attached at the last 6 pages of this February 8th report. The recommendations remained the same, that the report be received, that the council code of conduct be adopted as presented, and further that third-party facilitators be contracted to deliver governance and respectful workplace training sessions for council. There are 2 alternatives in the recommendations at the bottom of it's page 5 of your agenda package, pages 5 and 6. And that is alternative 1, that the council code of conduct be adopted with whatever amendments you may wish to have, and that the following revisions be made, after which it be returned to council for further consideration if you wish further consideration. And as we were just chatting before the meeting began, and what's not mentioned here is that Bill 26 has passed first reading, which will bring consideration of a code of conduct by councils into legislation as a mandatory requirement. But we're not there yet. It's at first reading, but it increases the incentive and the need to see this through. If you look at page 7, the background, in 2017, the UBCM had a working group on responsible conduct, and it was a joint initiative between the UBCM and or elected officials and the Local Government Management Association, which represents staff, municipal staff, as well as the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And this group was formed to undertake collaborative research and policy work around the issues of responsible conduct of local government elected officials. And the outcomes identified the expression of 4 foundational principles, which are in the draft code of conduct. That's integrity, accountability, respect, leadership, and collaboration. And these became shared principles and standards of conduct, which have been issued for the development of code of conducts within local government. And there's a copy of the August 2018 model code of conduct included in that, in the UBCM report, and the companion guide getting started on a code of conduct that is part of the report that was attached to the June 15th. It was an attachment to the June 15th report. And council made its first commitment in June of 2019 when they had a facilitated session on the requirements of council. And they made a commitment then to create and adhere to a code of conduct for public meetings, and that this code should be posted in a visible location within the council chambers. And a draft then was prepared a year ago, January 2021, using the UBCM's template code. And we borrowed from some other municipalities' language as well, Richmond, North Vancouver, from their code of ethics. And of course, using the recommendations from the working group, the UBCM working group, which was a very thorough group. And that group is still running. That there is still a working group that continues to work on code of conducts for local government. So they have now produced a new guide as of April 22, 2021, called Forging the Path to Responsible Conduct. And that is also attached to this June report. So you've seen it a few times already. And it identifies two central concepts. The first being a continuous improvement practice to foster responsible conduct, maintain good governance, and resolve conduct issues informally. And two, where it is needed, code of conduct enforcement. So that's looking towards the future. We're not there yet. That I suspect is part of what the current UBCM working group is continuing to work towards. So this is an important measure in upholding the culture and core values for our town. And I know you've got a lot of questions, and Councillor DeAndrade has included her most recent suggested edits, and those show up. They start at page 88 of your council agenda package, and you'll see her comments in blue and inserted in the midst of the draft that council presented from January 2021. And I will let you turn it over to you, Mayor Beamish, and let you proceed to discuss what you want to do.
Thank you. I think one other thing I'd like to add to the conversation, that is the UBCM resolution that was put forward by UBCM executive this year. And it is in the resolution book and in September, and it was endorsed by the UBCM. And it reads as follows: strengthening responsible conduct. Whereas responsible conduct of elected officials, both individually and collectively as a board, council or board, is essential to sound and effective governance. And whereas local governments are best served by tools and resources that reflect the legislative framework for local government in British Columbia, which is based on foundational concepts of autonomy, empowerment, accountability, and collaboration. Therefore, be it resolved that UBCM asks the province to introduce legislation requirements that all local governments in British Columbia must consider the adoption of or updating of a code of conduct at least once in each new term of office, that collaboratively with UBCM and others to consider to design, work collaboratively with UBCM and others to consider design of a mandatory educational module that would support responsible conduct by local officials, update the oath of office prescribed by regulation embedded in the foundational principles identified by the working group on responsible conduct, and provide guidance for local governments that have established an oath of office by bylaw, so these oaths may be updated with the same foundational principles for responsible conduct. So this was endorsed by UBCM, and as we see now, the province is moving forward with enacting legislation requiring local governments to adopt a code of conduct. I think we have to be very cautious and concerned about what the purpose of a code of conduct is. A code of conduct is to regulate our relationship with each other and how we work together. It's there's other regulations that guide us and require us in terms of working with the community, but a code of conduct, it regulates how we work together and the responsible and respect that we show each other. And that's the purpose of the code of conduct. It's not to supplant the community charter, the Local Government Act, the Ombudsman Act, Workers' Compensation or WorkSafe BC, the FOI, the judicial review process. All of these processes are available and also govern how we work and how we make decisions. This is intended to govern how we work together and how we treat each other in a respectful manner. I want to be just cautious so we make sure that we continue to look at this as an inward-looking document, not an outward-looking document. Because if it's an outward-looking document, it unfortunately, I believe, opens up the door for an awful lot of other problems that we may not want. At UBCM this year, there was conversation from a number of municipalities who have adopted code of conduct that have been considered by them to be unworkable because they led to an awful lot of kind of complaints from the public, just access to saying, well, we don't think you dealt with us correctly, dealt with us properly. That's not what the code of conduct is for. That's what the ombudsman is for. That's what judicial review is for. That's what the legislation that guides us is for. This is intended to be how we deal with each other and how we deal with our staffs internally as an organization. But I just want to put that caveat on there in terms of what my interpretation of the code of conduct is for. Others may have another interpretation, but I think if we broaden it to supplant or add to other existing legislations, the governance, our requirements for to consult with the community, to advertise, to give notice, to give other opportunities, we just extend the opportunity to have a code of conduct that will fail us and not be effective, and will be caught up in an ongoing stream of review and complaint and process. One of the other things that was looked at by UBCM this year, I think, is the idea of a provincial officer who will be the, what they call them these days, the guy who oversees the whole process. Each community seems to be having a process. Rebecca? You're muted.
I believe you're referring to the integrity officer.
Integrity office. Several local governments have adopted integrity officers, and the whole intent was also to bring that into one office because there would seem to be several integrity officers around, and there's different interpretations and things like this revolving as a result of that. Whereas when you're dealing with the ombudsman, you're dealing with an interpretation that is fairly consistent. So that's what they were looking for in that context. So enough by me. So. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mark Beamish, and I'm glad you mentioned, it's not just how we work together, it's how we interact with staff as well, which is important. In light of the fact that this is very much on the UBCM table and provincial legislation is being drafted, it's potentially conceivable that, or is it potentially conceivable that a template may come down after the provincial legislation is passed, that this is the code of conduct that municipalities should adopt? Is that conceivable that they might?
The provincial legislation might have some parameters to it, but I'm not sure that it would be prescriptive.
I'm just to that end, what I was suggesting is that, and I think you alluded to it, is that we keep it as it is a living document,
yes.
And that we keep it as simple as, keep it in the intent of the code of conduct, but not make it so, as you referred, cumbersome that it becomes crippling. And, I think it's going to be a bit of a wait and see what happens with the influence of UBCM and the provincial government, because in 18 months' time, they may say, this is it. Everyone has to adopt this protocol.
Thank you. Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, this has taken way too long. And then second of all, I mean, there's like two trains of thought, obviously, about, society is just becoming continually more and more sensitive, which is great in some areas, but maybe concerning in other areas. But I think maybe what my original, like when I see this and we go through all this stuff over and over again, and you like, I'm just, yeah, I guess I'm with Councillor Cole. There must be some, you know, I find it hard to believe that you'd have different code of conducts through municipalities. I mean, councillors, they respect how you should treat and be treated. I mean, don't you think that would just be like similar across the board, like in any council or any relationship? And once we get to that point, like that's just what we should adopt. And if it changes, then we just have to change with it. You know, I don't know. I mean,
I think that's the idea of the UBCM model code of conduct. I mean,
Yeah.
it was developed by our peers, by people representing municipalities large and small across the province, and that's what was developed as a model. The idea of the process and the UBCM resolution, in fact, was that it be reviewed annually by council. Not every or not annually. So it actually says work collaboratively with UBCM and others to consider the mandatory consider the adoption or updating of a code of conduct at least once earlier in each new term of office. Now, it could be at least once, so it could be done annually. Yeah, Rebecca, I see your hand.
Yes, I just want to read out to you what the proposed two sections that would be added to the community charter say. The proposed section 113.1 says, within 6 months after its first regular council meeting following a general local election, a council must decide A, whether to establish a code of conduct for council members, or B, if a code of conduct for council members has already been established, whether it should be reviewed. And then 2, it has, before making a decision under that section, the council says what you must consider and the prescribed requirements. And 3, that if you decide not to establish a code of conduct under section 1 or review an existing code of conduct, you must make available to the public on request a statement respecting the reasons for that decision. The 113.2 states that if a council decides not to establish a code of conduct or review it, the council must reconsider that decision before January 1st of the year of the next general election. And 2, in a reconsideration under subsection 1, the council must then again follow those same considerations and prescribed criteria, and again must issue a statement respecting their reasons if they decide not to do so. That's what's coming if the legislation is enacted.
Yeah, and I certainly have no problem at all adopting the UBCM model code of conduct as a base. That's been done, that's been developed by people who, like us, work in a voluntary capacity, serving local governments, including with the assistance of professional staff. And then we review it, or you review it in the next mandate, and I think that's appropriate. Councillor Ladwig?
So I probably have questions, but just first of all, I just want to be clear on what it is we're doing here today. Staff have recommended that we adopt the code of conduct as presented. Is that the one with Councillor DeAndrade's comments in it? Is that what they're recommending?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so can I get clarity on that? Just to
Rebecca?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Beamish. No, the one that we were recommending is the one that's attached to the June 16th report. So, or the June 2021 report. And I believe that draft code of conduct is at, I'm just looking for the exact pages. And because it was attached to that code. So let me just scroll through to the exact page numbers here.
Maybe 29?
Yes, it starts at page 29. That was the initial draft.
29 to 34, yeah.
Yes.
okay, so then my second question then is just from a process perspective, did we just blatantly ignore all Councillor DeAndrade's comments? Like I don't.
No, you can do whatever you like with them. Yeah, my recommendation, my preference is we adopt the model code of conduct. But if you want to make amendments to it, by all means, that's your. Yeah, but individually, Each one.
that it would be, we'd walk through.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Councilor Diandrad?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, thanks for the opportunity and thanks for putting my edits there. I just want to disclose, first of all, when I made all the edits, I did extensive research in many other codes of conduct and code of ethics. And one thing we have to remember that the UBCM is a template, obviously done by several people that have discussed in depth the subject, but at the same time is a template and we should adapt to our reality. If we look back what happens in the past, there was a lot of issues with transparency and trust and things like that. So when being part of that as a citizen and now as a counselor, I wanted to incorporate this into this code. And it was very interesting because our corporate officer sent yesterday or today, a code of conduct from the town of Ladesmith. And I was very impressed that a lot of the edits I made, they have included in their report. For example, when I start the first edit that I add the sentence, right, the introduction, the citizens of the town of Gibson are entitled to have fair, honest, and open local government that has earned the public's full confidence. The code of conduct for the city, for the town of Ladesmith, it talks about this throughout. They start with council is the keeper of the public trust and must uphold the highest standard of ethical behavior, make decisions that benefit the community. And they go on, be open and transparent manner so that the public can understand the process and rationale used to reach decisions and the reasons. They keep going. Council members shall act in the public interest by conducting council business. And they keep going, and the public can continue to have full confidence in the integrity of the government of the town. This is their edits. And at the very last page, where they have an attachment where all the councilors signs, they say the exact sentence with some small difference. The residents of the town of Ladysmith are entitled to have a fair, ethical, and accountable municipal council that has earned the public's full confidence for integrity. It is an honor and privilege to serve the public. So anyhow, I understand that there was certain reactions, but the code of conduct presented by staff was very close to the template, and I don't disagree. I mean, I didn't disagree with basically anything. I made few amendments, but what I felt here in this conduct that it's almost the community. This is for council, how council proceeds, but how council has an obligation. We are here because of the public. We are the reason we have our positions is because of the people. We are government, the people. We have response to the needs of the community, and I think that's what I try to. My edits were focused on that, right, and good governance. And anyway, so all the edits I made, it was members will ensure decision-making process are fair and subject to public scrutiny, and that proper records are kept and audit trails are in place. Why did I make this comment? Because in the past, the public wanted answers, and there was no ways of, bringing certain information to the public because there was no paper trail, right? And things that were fairly recent. So these are the reasons. So I'm not here to disregard the work that staff did, but I think it's important to incorporate certain key points to make this like the town of Ladysmith did. I think they did a tremendous job, actually.
Councilor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I sort of very much agree with what you mentioned in your opening comments about the code of conduct is a document intended to how we treat each other and how we treat staff. There are other sort of documents and ethics tools that are in place, like our strategic plan. We've discussed transparency and openness in one thing and another. The importance of what we're dealing with today is how we treat each other and how we treat staff. And I think, as you said, it should be an inward-looking document, not a document that puts all sorts of, I can see, I appreciate everything that Councillor D'Andretti's done. I don't know what sort of a track record Lady Smith has had with their document and how many other problems may have been created because of it. Perhaps Councillor D'Andretti or the corporate officer can say how long they've had their document in place and what sort of track record it's given them with, that brought up other issues that you referred to earlier in your opening remarks, Mayor Beamish. But I think at this point, because of all the other moving parts, that we should go with the simplest format and something that can be easily amended as we go along, not have to start retracting things and changing things. Because if you put something out saying you're going to do something and then it becomes problematic and you have to say, well, no, it can't be covered under this document. It has to be moved to another form of legislation. It just becomes confusing for everyone. So at this point, because it is something new and it's got moving parts, I would move that we go with the UBCM draft and proposal as outlined in the staff recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Lumley, second that?
Have discussion?
Yeah.
Some of the, it's all good stuff. Obviously it's like what Amory's done is like, you're taking it to like public, like it's all about the public, and I get it, but that's covered off in other documents, and it's covered off in the oath you take, like when you're elected and you take an oath to go into office. I'd like to see this document stay as this is how we treat each other. Our code of conduct in council chambers. I know there's a couple things that, say in public as well, like private or public, but which means, yeah, you're not going to have disparaging remarks for people or chastise people out in a coffee shop or something. But I'd like to see, that's why I seconded it. I'd like to see this code of conduct be kind of primarily about our code of conduct together, which I think the document is. And some of these other things, although they're good, they're covered off in other documents. And like I said, we, like most of the things you took an oath. I don't know if do we put our hand on a Bible or we just raised our right hand, but you took an oath to do this stuff. So, you kind of burn the bridge at that point, I guess, but those are my two thoughts.
Councillor Ladwig?
Yeah, I don't feel good about just ignoring all of Councillor D'Andretti's comments. I think it's okay for us to think about how we conduct ourselves with the community. I think that's not a bad thing to have in our code of conduct. I haven't looked at Lady Smith's. I would like to have seen that. Personally, I've made this statement before and I'll make it again. I don't have codes of conduct, don't mean a lot to me. I think it's all about respecting each other. And I think as responsible adults, we should be respectful to everyone, regardless of what seat you sit in. So I take this with a grain of salt. Having said that, I feel like Councillor D'Andretti put comments forward. We haven't provided a rebuttal back. I'm not saying I would support all of her comments, but just to say nope.
That's what this meeting's for. So, but if we're going to do them, I think we just start at the first one and go through, because, and I think we need to, again, remember the focus. The focus is how we deal with each other.
But
if we're talking about transparency and stuff like that, we've got the FOI. We just can't, we're not openly transparent that everybody gets everything they ask for. So we've got to remember within the constraints of legislation. So that could be a caveat in there. So
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm just not so convinced that it is just about how we deal with ourselves. And I mean, if that's not how Ladysmith did it, then why
Yeah.
is, right?
But if you read the model document, it is, go to item 6 in the model document, implementation. The council code of conduct is intended to be self-enforcing. But it's not intended to be one that is driven by public complaint. It's intended to be one that we collectively enforce among each other, with each other, among each other, as to how we treat each other. So it's not intended to be enforced by the next letter we get in or the next complaint we receive. So, Councillor Ludwig?
Yeah, I don't see self-enforcing meaning that it's being driven by the community. I think that term is open to interpretation. But regardless, rather than walking through every line by line, what would be more productive for me, because I see a couple lines in there that kind of make me go, eh. But it would be more productive, I think, for me, if people that aren't comfortable with Councillor DeAndrade's recommendations, that you point out the ones you're not comfortable with, and let's just focus on those. Because for the most part, a number of them are fine as far as I'm concerned. Let's just focus on the ones that aren't.
And fine, however you want to do it. Yeah, Councillor DeAndrade?
Yeah, I just want to corroborate with what Councillor Ledwig said. This is not, I think there's a way when you conduct something, it's a way you proceed. You can be focused on your self-interest, you can be focused on just on the interest of the community, you can be focused on the interest of staff, or you can be, so I think this is about, it's something to tune us up. And I think, the same way we need to remind to be respectful with our colleagues, we have to remember to be respectful with the public too, obviously, because the public asks questions. And I have to say, I have been quite pleased, Mayor Beamish, with the way that council has been responding people's inquiries and respectfully responding, I would say. I think this is a very good progress. So, I mean, I agree with Council. Maybe we don't need any code because we know already what our obligations are. We know we need to be respectful at the table. So why do we need a code? So if we're gonna have a code, which I'm not against, I think it's just a reminder of how we should proceed. And in this reminder, it's not about, oh, if I speak offensively, I could have repercussions. No, it's what's our goal here? It's to provide information when we are discussing relevant to the public as well. We need to remind that because obviously the meeting's 2 hours. I want to go and watch my TV or have a glass of wine. I don't want to be here sitting discussing things. So the fact that when we read a code and it reminds us of our obligations, not to have the public involved, and I put few lines about the public, but I was just using the example of the town of Ladysmith, is because, Mayor, you said that the public should not be part of the process and that there are other documents, but actually they cite even the other documents. So I think that they did a really good job actually, because they don't define too much stuff, but they go straight to the point. Anyways, I think is important. For example, the first sentence, I don't think, why would someone disagree with that? My first input.
Okay, we do on the First Amendment, the citizens of the town of Gibsons are entitled to have honest. It's not about the citizens of the town of Gibsons, it's about council. It should be when the councillors are entitled to be respected among their peers. It's not about the citizens of the town of Gibsons, the code of conduct. And that's why I say it's an inward looking document, not one that says citizens come to say, I don't feel like I've been treated respectfully and honestly according to your code of conduct. That's not what this is about. That's go to the ombudsman.
Wow.
Okay. That's what the Ombudsman Act is for. Somebody says, I don't think I've been treated fairly. Okay. The Ombudsman Act is there to ensure that they review that and ensure that we treat them fairly. But in terms of this is about how we treat each other as councillors.
You can't have the public sticking their noses in saying, hey, I don't think that councillor treated that councillor fairly.
Exactly.
This is an internal, it's for us to decide.
Yeah.
Anyway. I don't agree with the first one anyway. I'll just chirp in every time, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
Councillor Kroll?
and there is a motion on the table that's been seconded by.
There is a motion on the table, and this is for discussion now. Yeah, it's very true. There is a motion on the table for the model code of conduct, and it's been seconded. So I guess that being said, now we're talking about amendments to the model code of conduct. Yeah. I'll go to Councillor Kroll first, and then Councillor Diendrath.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. And just to something that Councillor D'Andretti said and Councillor Ladwig alluded to it is unfortunate that we need a code of conduct. It's, one took an oath of office. It's a respected position. You're representing the community and the people that put you in office. And, so I agree with what Councillor D'Andretti said. It's unfortunate we need it. And it is this inward document. It's how we treat each other. It's how we treat staff. And I think that has been captured in, I as I said earlier, I certainly respect everything that Councillor D'Andretti's done. But my bigger overarching concern is that we put stuff in that becomes problematic, and then we're in an awkward position. How do you withdraw it? So, I'm quite happy to proceed with the editing, but I won't be endorsing anything else at this point with respect to amending the motion that's on the floor, because I think at this point, because of the provincial legislation that's happening and the ongoing UBCM action that's happening, we should keep it simple. It is an internal document for us to work with together, and with the respect that is deserving to staff from council. And I think that's been the prime reason that this document has come about in the first place, is, to keep from having to go downstairs and find staff in tears because they've had comments made at an open public meeting which were disrespectful. So that's what we're dealing with here, and I think it needs to be kept in that context.
Councillor Diendrath?
Thank you. First of all, I was interested to Councillor Crowe just mentioned that we are here as representatives of the community, so that might mean something. And second, Mayor Beamish, just to this process that's happening right now, Councillor Ladwig asked how we were going to go about it, and you were explaining, right? Or should we adopt this or that? Suddenly there's a hand going on. Okay, second, let's vote. I don't understand where this is going. There was a question about the process. What the process are we going to discuss, or we have already discussed? Because suddenly there was a motion, and now we have to look at the motion. But the other question has not even been answered.
Councillor Diendrath, at any time in a proceeding, a councillor may make a motion, and it may be seconded. Now, the motion was to adopt the code of conduct. Now we're talking about amendments to the motion. So that if council wants to amend the motion, which is amending the code of conduct, then that's totally appropriate. And so looking at the amendments are amendments to the motion.
Okay.
And so in my view, I've expressed my view of the first one. I think we have to keep this as a good comment by Councillor Kroll, an internal document. It is an internal document. It's not an external document. It's how we deal with each other. And so that we need to look at it in that context, in my view. Yeah. Councillor Diendrath.
So, Mayor Beamish, what's the function of council? What is
the function
really
of
the
council
function?
is established by the community charter, section 7, the purpose of council.
So, no, can
And
please.
good governance of the community.
Good governance,
That's right.
okay, which involves transparency, accountability, leadership, integrity, stewardship, transparency. Towards-
Exactly, but that's not relationship. That's good governance. And this is not about governance. This is not a governance document. This is a policy relative to how we work with each other. It's not a governance
Exactly.
document.
So
It's
we
not
should.
governance. Okay.
Exactly, Mayor, how we should work with each other.
Yes. How we work with, I work with you, you work Councillor Kroll, and vice versa. Not how we work with the community. It's how we work with each other. There's the community charter established how we work with the community. The community charter, and then if people object to how we're working with the community, they have the right to go to the ombudsman. They have the right to take decisions for judicial review to the courts. They have rights to go to the FOI court office if they disagree with information that's being provided. All those rights don't change. Now they're all there. If somebody says we're not sharing information appropriately, they have an access to deal with that. That's all provided by legislation. The Workers' Compensation Act establishes for workers how we relate with workers in terms of bullying and harassment. We have to have a policy with regards to bullying and harassment with workers. This is how we deal with each other at the council table.
It's just interesting that other municipalities took into consideration things that I have been reading.
Yeah,
I have been written, and now it's just disregarded as this is not a part. I disagree.
Well, we're not another municipality. We are Gibson's, and looking at the material that's provided by UBCM as a base point. I don't disagree that at some point in time an amendment may be proposed to change the basic code of conduct based upon experience, but and that's fine. So I guess my question is, and in terms of the First Amendment that's proposed, is there support for it? Councillor Ladwig, I haven't heard from you on that.
Well, it seems to me that we need to, first of all, vote on whether or not we think this is an inward-looking document or an outward-looking document. Like, because right then, if the council agrees that it's an inward-looking document, then it's the version that staff presented.
Yeah.
If council wants to do a broader look at how we conduct ourselves and ourselves community, then we should look at Ladysmith. Frankly, I just don't want to discuss either of these for very long, because I don't see this as, like, I find these documents limited in their value, but.
Yeah. Well, even in this document here, if you go to 6, the implementation, the code of conduct is intended to be self-enforcing.
I just don't know what self-enforcing means. Self-enforcing
It means that among ourselves, we enforce it. It's not enforced by other people coming from the outside.
But that doesn't mean that we couldn't self-enforce ourselves to be respectful to the community. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know what.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just think that.
Yeah.
I think that term is up for interpretation. That's all.
Yeah, Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, if you've never have, you should. You can go back and watch some of the Nanaimo council meeting, and the council could actually remove a councillor from a meeting. So if you want to see dysfunction, complete lack of respect for one another, F-bombs, name calling, you go back and look at several meetings in Nanaimo. That's where they have no code of conduct, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, as much as you might think that you don't need it, well, I mean, obviously it's prescribed, it's legislated that we do need one, and that we have to review it every so often. But I mean, consider yourself lucky. You can rationally discuss things with someone and have an opposing view, and not name call and swear, and fortunately that's the place we find ourselves. But I mean, we do need one, and I guess it's anyway. It's surprisingly, I know I have the same way. Like obviously you deal with people at the ministry. I have employees and so on and so forth, and everyone has to find a way to respectfully conduct themselves, or they won't get anything done, or they won't be able to accomplish something that they may want to accomplish. But yeah, I guess it is a necessity, but I agree with you on that one.
Councilor Diandrat?
Thank you, Mayor. I understand that we are not debating whether we need a code of conduct or not. I think it's we already accepted that it is a good thing or a need, either or. I think it's just like I propose amendments that it's not a response to the public, but is a reminder as our role as counselors, right? Because we are humans and we are subject to bias regardless, whether you believe you are or not. So when I'm seated at the table, I could have a self-bias. Well, I want to get this done quickly because I'm tired. Okay. So this is a reminder that we have a responsibility towards the public, even though sometimes we have to endure. The second is sometimes there is a way of conducting things. There's a little bit more cumbersome for staff that gives staff extra work. Nobody wants to give staff extra work, but in our duty of thinking about our responsibility towards the public, we might have to ask certain things from staff or even put more process that looks like more work because in consideration for our role as counselors. So that's the part that I don't understand. This is not accountability. Like, I understand what you say. This is a document to regulate ourselves, but in regulating ourselves, we are reminded of our role. And to say, to me, this argument to say, well, we have this in other codes. Well, we have the charters of rights and freedoms. Maybe we don't need any of this because do you know what I'm saying? We have the community charter, we have all these documents, but we are writing a code to narrow down, to bring more tangible, so we can always refer to this document instead of referring to the whole community charter. So
let's take a look at your item 2.5, openness and transparency.
Oh, we already remember when we had the workshop with Tracy?
Yeah.
We made the case, she made the case, and I thought, okay, we can remove this part.
Okay. So what document are we looking at right now then? I better get on the right page. So we're dealing with the attachment 2 document in the back, page 88. Is that the one we're dealing with?
Yes.
Okay, everybody on the same page? Page 88? Page 88, 89, 90, 91.
Are those the computer pages or paper pages? I know
These are the agenda pages.
Are we just looking at her blue amendments?
I've got that on, I'm starting on page 88.
Sure.
On the document, yeah, okay, good, yeah. Because I was looking at the earlier draft. So,
Titled attachment 2, right?
attachment 2, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
good, yeah, good.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah. So in terms, I mean, I still disagree with I mean, we got to take these one at a time and decide whether we're going to amend the model code in this way. So let's just take the first one. Okay. Are we going to, I mean, right now we've got a motion on the table to adopt the model code. These would be amendments to it. So the first one, first paragraph, the citizens of the town of Gibson are entitled to fair, honest, and open local government that has earned the public's full confidence. Is that something that is a code of conduct issue? Does somebody want to?
It is here in the top.
I'm not interested in Ladysmith. I'm not interested in Ladysmith. This is the document we have before us, because I'm sure there's many codes of conduct out there that we can look at. Let's look at the one that's for the town of Gibson's.
Oh, I believe it is. That's why I wrote down. So.
Yeah. So is that something you want to have in the code of conduct?
You're asking me?
Well, I'm asking somebody to move it, okay? I've got a no from Councillor Lumley. I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, myself, so I'm not in favor of that. So Councillor Kroll?
I think, we need to go back to what Councillor Ladwig was saying. If you're putting a document that is out for everyone to use your term, outward-looking document, some of these terms that Councillor Dendretti has offered are in that context. So if you take the lens, what's outward-looking, what's inward-looking, and this comment, it's in our oath of office, basically. We've already agreed to that. So, I don't really think it needs to be reiterated, because you get complexities of individual documents that if you put the same statement in multiple documents, but then there's other things that influence the individual documents, it becomes overall sort of conflicting, if you get the drift of where I'm going. It becomes a lawyer's field day is what it is. But I think if it's amendments made that make the document other than the intention of it, which is inward looking, they're counterproductive.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ledwig?
I will once again say that I think we need to make a motion as a council to decide whether or not this document is just going to be about how we treat each other and staff. If that's the purpose of this document, that's the purpose of this document. If this document is going to be broader than that and just how we conduct ourselves as councillors, then that changes what goes in it. I think both of those documents have their own value. Personally, I think it's more valuable to have it be broader in just how we conduct ourselves, but that's for council to decide as the collective. So I think we should vote on that. And if council decides it should just be about how we treat each other and staff, then adopt the one that staff developed, and that's fine. We can go home. I guess we're already home, aren't we? But if people feel that it should be broader than just how we treat each other and staff, and they're both valuable, valid documents, but they're different. And they're different. And so I think we need to have a vote on that, and then go from there.
But I think the model code of conduct is inward looking, and that's the intent of this whole process. There's a code of conduct that governs how we deal with each other and how we deal with staff inwardly. So, Councillor Dendretti?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the issue, to me, yes, it seems that there's a separation, right, inward or outward, but I don't see it this way, because everything is contextualized. We function inside a context. We are not separate. So if we have in mind what our duties are, that we want to, always, we want the public to have confidence. Therefore, we want to be explicit. We want to give good communication to the public. So this gets embedded, right? Our discussions are open, respectful. And when a member of the community in our meetings ask, we are not counselors here impatient because we want to go home. That's, to me, why it's important. It's not that the public's going to come and ask for accountability, because I agree, this is a document for us to regulate ourselves, but there's no regulation without context. And I think it's important to know what ultimately is our role. Our role here is we have a duty towards our staff and towards our public, right? And I think it's important to remember this. That's why this position, it can be very easy. I sit here and I just agree, and then I go home. But that's not really the role of counselor. A counselor, if you are a good counselor, you're going to work really hard, right, to discuss with your community and do things and bring to the table and get prepared. So I think my amendments were based on that, not that the public now is going to come and because I agree, this is a document for us. but we are contextualized. We cannot separate from that.
And as it says in section 6, it's self-enforcing. This is our document for us to enforce among ourselves. You know, that we don't conduct all of our business in public, and the public doesn't see how we conduct ourselves in private in other meetings. So this is a document in terms of how we conduct business among ourselves. So,
Yeah.
so okay, so amendment number 1, and I'm just going to number these amendments. Number 1, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that's not amendment. Okay. The second one, to help achieve good governance, and this is paragraph 2. Yeah, I don't oppose that one. That's a motherhood statement. I mean, that's what we exist for. So if it helps clarify for any one of us that this is what we're here for, then I'm okay with that. So any opposed to the statement to help achieve good governance? Seeing no opposed, that will be an amendment to the motion, and we'll bring all the amendments together when we look at amend the motion. Going down to policy, there's a line there, and I'm not sure what that change is, whether it's just a spacing. It appears to be adjacent to the space. So it doesn't appear that
Dinesh, where are you talking about? Because
I'm on page 88. And you see there's a line there on the side, on the left-hand side, between the word policy and fundamental principles. Indicates there's been a change. It looks like it's just a spacing change from what I can see.
Yeah, you can ignore all this because this is just the way. I had to copy the document, the PDF into a Word.
And so again, at the bottom of that page, there's a line that really just relates to the page number it appears. So do we say that that is not an amendment?
No.
Okay, so then we'll go over to the next page, page 89. And 1.4, leadership and collaboration. Is there an amendment in that paragraph, or again, is that a line change?
Yes, you can ignore all the lines.
Okay, but I can't ignore all the lines, because when I come down to 2 standards of conduct, there's a new one put in there, and that's called members will ensure decisions made, decision-making process are fair and subject to public scrutiny, and that proper records are kept and audit trails are in place. Do we not do that now? Is that something we don't do? I mean, our decision-making in terms of in camera is not always open to public scrutiny. And so is there something we don't do there, Councilor Diendrath?
I think, Mayor, I remember at the beginning of the mandate, there was decisions that were made in the past that when we wanted to understand, there was no really, we weren't provided documents because they didn't really were in place. So I think that's what I meant. For example, if you look at all the financial process in town, you can find everything, right? And now that we're going to get better in the records, I think that's what it is, right? So any decision we can back up with documentation. I think that's the case, right? Whether with peer reviews, where all this, I think that's the point, right? Because it won't happen in things that are not disputable, but if there's some issue that there's whether divisions in public or something, I think it's important that we know how decisions have been made to that point, and it just what it means.
Councilor Ludwig?
Your point, Mayor Beamish, yes, I think we do already do that. I think we already do everything in this document, frankly.
Yeah, but still, I mean, this is an addition to the document. That's why I say, is that a conduct issue, or is that a process issue?
Well, it's a conduct
Process
issue. if we ensure that we want this at the table, that it becomes also a conduct. It becomes a process because council wants. If we believe that it's important, for example, even a very small example, just to contextualize, right? There's the thing about this substance that is leaking that we know that there was a sampling done, but we don't know what it is. I mean, in this case, it's not meaningful, right? That's okay. We can do another one. Fair enough. We should even do every X number of years. But that's a good example. So if there was no care for whatever reason, or something disappears. So I think it's just ensuring that the process are accountable for accountability. That's it. And we are getting better, I think.
Councillor Lumley, you're going to comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think that belongs in this document. Obviously, it's not how we conduct with each other, record keeping by staff members, but there was just, I think Rebecca just commented on the expertise of record keeping because she went back on that file regarding a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Like years and years and years, and everything was detailed and documented. So, I mean, I don't know if it's fair to pick and choose, but yeah, I think that's more of like something inherently, if you're in a meeting, you can keep all the notes you want and you can go back and bring them back. And that's up to you, I guess, as a counselor. Like you could sit here and take no notes, right? So, but that's like more of a professionalism than a code of conduct, I think. So
yeah, I see that as a process issue myself. Anybody want to strongly argue for inclusion of that? Did we take a vote on that, or? Well, let's take a vote on it. All in favor of including that statement in the code of conduct? Councillor Diendrad, opposed? Oh, are you in favor, Councillor Ludwig? Yes, you are. You're muted. I can't hear what you're saying. So. Yeah.
Yes, I'm in favor. It doesn't harm me to have it in there, so I don't know.
Okay.
That's fine.
So opposed? No. Okay. Opposed. Okay, so that doesn't pass muster. It doesn't mean it won't get there next time. So the next one is members will ensure their actions are consistent with the shared principles and values collectively agreed to by council through the town's strategic plans and policies. Anybody opposed to that statement? Councillor Lumley.
what does it mean? Like by adding, like, so every single strategic plan has to include that? Like, is that, are we putting is that going to be at the top of our strategic plan board for the rest of?
No, but the strategic plan has values in it, and including transparency and all those things which were alluded to. So they already exist in the strategic plan, and so that's just saying that that will assure that through their actions are consistent with the shared principles and values collectively agreed to by council through the town's strategic plan and policies. I don't mind that reference myself, that cross-reference to other documents. So anybody totally opposed to that? We all in favor, agree to put that in. So that becomes amendment number 2. Okay. I'm turning my page quietly, quickly. There, okay, got it. So accountability is demonstrated through the following conduct, and those are listed there. I'm not sure why that line is there, but there's no obvious amendments there. So we'll go down to the paragraph that says, the point that says members will consider the issues before them and make decisions as a collective body. As such, members will actively participate in debate about the merits of a decision and make decisions in the best interest of the public. Once a decision has been made, all members will recognize the democratic majority, ideally acknowledging its rationale and articulating their opinions on a decision, when articulating their opinions on a decision. So the amendment there is make decisions in the best interest of the public. I believe we do that anyway, but so does it matter that we articulate that, or Councillor Lumley?
I would hope that we do that already. My only concern is, I mean, I think we do, but my only concern is I have to go back to Councillor Kroll's comment at the fact that if we start opening this thing up, like if someone's going to start challenging the document saying, well, that wasn't the best decision for the public. I mean, there's always two sides to the public, right? So
yeah,
there's what we might think is best for the public, and then there's the public who might think some people might think it's not the best thing. I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
you know what? It's here nor there, I guess. But I just, I just don't want to make this document open to scrutiny.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need the public screaming at us because, like citing all these documents, going, well, you failed here, you failed here. You know what I mean? It's like, again, I don't know. I struggle with it, but.
Can I suggest? I mean, my concern with that is, I think it should be, the word should be community, not public, because I think that there are times that we make decisions that you know, we may not have all the public in front of us may not be the supporting, but we're making a decision based upon the community needs, not the public needs in some cases. So my suggestion would be that the word community should be what we should be looking at personally. Second that, Councillor Dindrak.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I don't mind about if you change to community. Actually, I like it. I think one thing, just corroborate, just on the point that Councillor Lumley mentioned, this is for us. When I come and sit here, in my mind, I'm making the best decision for the community. Doesn't mean that people might think otherwise. That's a different thing. This is not a judging document for the community to judge us. This is a reminder every time we sit here, the same way that I like having the strategic plan, the main headlines in front of me. It's a reminder that every decision that we do is focused on this. So, and there has been many decisions that we have to do that sometimes, right, we are pondering. Doesn't mean that every public will agree. So I wouldn't worry about being judged by that, but I think it's important that this is our compass. We talk about compass at the beginning of our strategic planning. This is a compass. I think that's what it is.
Would you support changing the word to community? Okay, so any strong opposition to that, best interest of the community? Okay, so that will be an amendment proposed. The next one is a larger statement. Members will recognize the difference between constructive discourse and discourse that is indecent, insulting, abusive, or consistent with bullying and harassment as defined by WorkSafe BC, and will not participate or allow participation by individuals or organizations engaging in its behavior. There's a comment on the side of that says, I think it's important to apply the same
Terminology.
Sorry?
Terminology.
Used by WorkSafe BC to avoid misinterpretation. What is an inappropriate offensive dialogue. So yeah, WorkSafe BC does have some, I mean, we are governed by WorkSafe BC already. So the question is, do we need to repeat that fact in this document? Councillor Ledwig?
This is actually a question for Councillor Andrade. Did you find those words, indecent, insulting, abusive, blah, blah, blah? Did you find that in the WorkSafe BC document, or did you, those were the words used in there?
And Mayor, if I can, I think the issue is because the word inappropriate and offensive, it can be, I've been offended many times here, but it's a kind of, okay, I feel offended. I felt many times that some comments were inappropriate, but it was not to the point that I wanted to trigger, right? Something escalate to any point. I think that's the point. When we say inappropriate and offensive, it seems that anything can be said as in a and while the words that WorkSafe BC uses, they are heavier, and therefore, if someone is gonna bring this issue, they have to think twice, and that's to me, that's the only point.
Yeah. I guess I'm only concerned that we bring words in from other legislation, which could be amended from time to time and become out of context. But I mean, we just have to be knowledge that WorkSafe BC does apply to us. And in fact, I believe it's referenced at the back of this document as one of the applicable documents. Workers' Compensation Act is referenced in the document. Do we need to bring that into the document? Councilor Andrade?
Okay, actually, there's a question that I would ask at the very end of the document when it comes to complaints, who will be the body? And in this case, I'm happy if you use offensive and inappropriate as per Work BC definition, I'm happy. And then we can always go back, and if the legislation change, I think it's not to lose, because anyone can be offended by any comment, especially nowadays.
Yeah. So what are we suggesting here, Councillor Ladwig?
I'd support the motion that Councillor DeAndrade just said. Like, we could soften we could take some of those words out, but just be consistent with WorkSafe BC. I think that's a fair thing to say.
Yeah, I'm okay with inappropriate and offensive as per Work BC, because then we are not, otherwise it's going to be, I can be offended, right? And well, I'm offended because you said something. Are we going to have this?
We'll put a period behind WorkSafe BC there in this statement.
Pardon?
Are we putting a period then behind WorkSafe BC in this statement and full stop there?
Well, I don't, it can be comma and will not participate. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I think it won't change the.
No, I mean,
yeah.
Anybody object to that? Councillor Ladwig, go ahead.
Well, this is interesting because so Councillor DeAndrade did not write the second part of that sentence. Staff did. And I think
did staff write it?
I think so. And I think we should leave it in, because read carefully what it's saying. And will not participate in or allow participation by individuals or organizations engaging in such behavior. That means the public. And I think we should leave that in there. I think we shouldn't. If the public
that's there. I never erased this. I think
I think we should. That's important.
I think Mayor Beamish was asking if we put a comma after Work BC and this becomes another sentence.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure if it doesn't matter in a way. Maybe some other.
Well, I mean, I'm okay. Anybody have any objection to this paragraph staying in then as it is presented here?
No, that's great.
Okay, seeing none. Okay, we'll take that as Amendment 4. Okay, the next one is the next paragraph down, and says the leaders of the community members will calmly face challenges and provide considered direction on issues they face as part of their roles and responsibilities, while empowering their colleagues, staff, and the public to do the same. Are we empowering the public to do the same in this document? Councilor DeAndrade?
I think, Mayor, there has been occasions when someone in the public is a little bit, whether aggressive or something, and you conduct yourself in a way that you empower them to be calm, right? You don't take necessarily, unless they escalate to a point that they have to be removed from the chamber, from the virtual chamber, but we empower them to calmly face challenge. So I thought that the public was appropriate because we deal with the public in our meetings. And I particularly, when someone comes to tell me to talk about something, a complaint, That's the kind of encouragement I give. I say, please, when you do,
Yeah.
be respectful, be calm, present your rationale. So
My concern is we're going outside of our jurisdiction by pulling in a regulation relative to, we will regulate the behavior of the public. We do that to a degree in the last sentence of the previous paragraph, and will not participate or allow participation by individuals or organizations engaging in such behavior. But I guess I'm just, I don't know how to regulate that in the policy. So I'm.
Mayor Beamish, is it your role when you are conducting a meeting, or anyone conducting a meeting, to regulate if a public misbehave? Is it our role to do that?
Yeah. Is it our role? Well, I mean, it is our meeting. It is our meeting. It is our meeting place, and we are not there to take abuse from anybody, including each other. So, Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. The public component in this context, I think, is a bit difficult because, as you said, we don't have, we have indicated to the public how they should behave in meetings, but they're not subscribing to this document. This is our document. And, in effect, you'd almost, in order to get the public to agree with this, you would expect them to out of how to behave. But, technically, you would almost have to hold a referendum to get them to say, yes, I'm going to agree with this, because we know for a fact there'll be times that they don't. We can put it in here, but it's I think it's somewhat meaningless in this context because they're not subscribing to this document. We are.
Other thoughts, Councillor Ledwig?
I'm certainly not going to dig in my heels on this one. I mean, it's whatever. Do you empower a senior citizen that comes to a meeting that maybe he's never spoken in front of a council before, and you're kind and encourage them to speak? Of course we do. That's the public. I mean, but does it need to be in the document? I don't know. Whatever. I think we should empower everyone to be engaged, and that should be our role. We should try to encourage public engagement. We should try to encourage our colleagues.
I don't have a problem with it. It's a small point. It's one point that I can point to as a say, well, look, our code of conduct says you must behave. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We encourage the public to be, and I think we do. I think it's
any strong opposition to it. I understand it's seeing none, we'll make it Amendment 5. Okay, going over then to the next page. I'm seeing the one that looks like 3.3.
3.1.
3.1 is there? Oh yeah, sorry. The members shall respect the confidentiality of information, including information concerning the property, personnel, or legal affairs of the town. They shall neither disclose confidential information without proper authorization, nor use information to advance their personal, financial, or other private interests. Members will not ask, not be asked by staff or other members. Okay, I'm having a hard time with that. Members will not ask nor be asked by staff or any member to disregard professional ethics or the law with requests or suggestions to bypass due process. Members will not ask nor be asked by staff or any member.
I think it's, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's your edit, Councillor DeAndrade. You speak to it. I was going to try to clarify it, but I'll let Councillor DeAndrade.
Well, I think this is to emphasize, because one thing is ask, and I think you can say the same. Well, we are telling members not to ask, but it's also not for counselors not to feel intimidated, not be asked as well, right? So if someone asks for whatever reason, whether another counselor or staff, it's just a reminder, we should not ask and not be asked. So it's
Should
just
say
that-
not asked nor be asked, right?
What did I say? Oh, nor, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
is-
that's it.
just one digit.
Yeah.
Not ask or be asked by staff
Yeah, great.
or any member to disregard professional ethics or the law with requests or suggestions to bypass due process. Okay.
The 3.2 is just,
I'm sorry, I'm still on 3.3.1. Any concerns with that and the wording of that? Basically, we won't ask staff, nor will staff ask us to.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
okay, all right, so. And remember this, that many of our staff have professional bodies where they have taken, where they have ethics to govern them. And we will not ask staff to bypass those professional ethics of those professional bodies. Okay. Okay, so that's number 6.
3.2, Mayor, is just a typo.
Yeah.
That
okay,
I
typo,
saw.
Okay. 3.3, members who bring forward concerns about wrongdoing will be treated fairly and with high standards of integrity. Issues, questions on that issue? Councilor Dindrad?
I just want to, because there's a whistleblower legislation coming soon. At one point, will impact directly municipal government. There's still, it's a phased approach, but obviously the ombudsman already, you can go there and complain. I think this is just important to, if anyone feels, because we are talking about process, right? So if anyone feels that's a wrongdoing, that they know they're not going to be retaliated, and then will be a platform to address that.
Well, if we're doing with that, should we put members or staff?
Well, remember we had the conversation that staff is a different code. We went through this, that actually apparently North Vancouver, and the corporate officer can elaborate on that, because that was my first proposal. And then the corporate officer actually found a document that actually they dismantle, and they have two separate, because like you said, staff has other regulatory bodies. But we should include this on the staff, right? When we.
Councilor Kroll?
Members, because when I looked at this, I think members is too broad. Like, it's just members of council, members of the community?
No.
So I think you need to just clarify that.
But all of these paragraphs start with members, so. Majority of these paragraphs start with members. So we need to define members. If we're going to do that, then that would be the easiest way to go and define members. Members equals members of council.
But it's a council,
Yeah, it's, this one just jumped out at me as to.
There's probably 30 members. It's not a sentence, it's 30.
Any concerns about this that we will, Rebecca?
Yes, if you look under the introduction at the very first paragraph, members is defined. It's
Okay, good. Yeah, good.
in brackets.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. Yeah, thank you. Okay, 3.3. Does anybody have any concerns with 3.3? Okay, so that's amendment 7. Oh, that's amendment 8, sorry. Amendment 7 was 3.3. Now well, hang on a sec. I got 2 3.3s here on my document. I got 3.3 members who bring forward issues. And then
Maybe this is probably a typo. Just It's because I introduced the 3.3, but I didn't add it. So yeah.
Should be 3.4.
I think staff is gonna do the numbering correctly, right? I might have put the number myself if I'm
Okay.
correct.
So,
just to make it
so you
easier.
see that, Corporate Officer?
I do. So the former 3.3 would now become 3.4.
3.4. It has a separate title, I see.
Mayor Beamish, actually, no, interaction with staff should be 0.4, right?
And then
So-
we'd have to
Yeah.
consequently amend everything else and then through the document. Okay.
I understand. I see that. Thank you.
Okay, so that becomes 0.4. And so that becomes in effect, yeah, you have to go back. It looks like something's happened above. I know 3.1. So this should be under 0.4. It should be 4.1.
4.1.
And then everything else consequentially gets changed through the document. So the numbering could be changed.
Mayor Beamish, for fairness, I'm the one that put the numbers because I thought if you want to refer something to the code, it should be numbered. But the staff did not provide any number. So when they added the document, they can do the correct numbering.
Yeah. So let's read this statement then. Members will not make statements, private or public, attacking or disparaging staff. Members have zero tolerance for behavior consistent with bullying and harassment and will not engage with individuals, associations, or organizations who display behavior towards council or staff that is consistent with bullying and harassment, where an allegation of bullying and harassment has been substantiated with evidence. That's two different statements in there. One is being the first one, members shall not make statements, private or public, attacking or disparaging staff members. Members will have zero tolerance for behaviors consistent with bullying and harassment and will not engage with individuals, associations, or organizations who display behavior towards council or staff that is consistent with bullying and harassment. That last sentence is just dangling in there. The statement where an allegation of bullying and harassment has been substantiated with evidence. Councilor Ludwig?
I have to say with this one, I don't agree because I think we have to have faith in our staff that if they come forward and say, I feel bullied, I don't need evidence. I don't need evidence in that. If they feel bullied, then we should honor that. And that's that. If I came forward and said, I feel bullied, I would hope that you would respect my feelings. And so.
I'll go to Councilor Lumley. You're muted.
Sorry. And that goes both ways. The problem I have with a statement is that you can internalize, like, I mean, I was like really harassed one night after a public council meeting right at the front door by a community group that really didn't understand a process that the town was taking. And they were wrong because they just didn't understand it. And I had like two people like literally, inches from my face screaming at me. So I don't know. I'm not gonna like. I'm gonna like. I did say if they didn't back off and calm down, I wouldn't speak to them. But I mean, I don't know. This seems like I'd have to like make some sort of allegation of bullying or harassment against these people or something. Which I don't want to do. I don't think it's necessary. But at the same instance, I mean. I guess what this paragraph says is you would hope that there wouldn't be another counselor standing with that group of people yelling at you. I guess that's my understanding of it. So,
yeah, Councilor Dean Dredd.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is to address, for example, if by any chance staff decides not to talk to an organization because they don't feel comfortable. I think it's important because there's a relationship that there's no an opportunity for the organization to speak, because there's a relationship that even though, yes, you trust staff, but you're not going to listen to one side. If it's something that you will decide to end the relationship or not to talk anymore for whatever consequence, this has to be addressed. The same way, if I come and say that I'm not, that I felt that, let's say, someone in council, a counselor harassed me with something, I think you want to hear the other side too, right? I think it's important to hear. So harassment, I understand that harassment is a personal feeling, but you want to give a chance to the other side.
But the statement here that's underlined does not relate to the non-underlined statement. It's a floating statement. One says you can disengage from process. Look, you're bullying and harassing me. I don't accept it. I will not engage with you. The other one says that there has to be evidence of, and it has to be substantiated. That means it has to have been investigated, substantiated. Well, that doesn't allow me to disengage with somebody. So that I think that's not a consistent statement, because it says that members will have zero tolerance for behavior consistent with bullying and harassment, and will not engage with individuals, associations, or organizations who display behavior towards council staff that is inconsistent with bullying and harassment. That engaging is just that, step away. Councillor Ladwig, then Councillor Dindrat.
No, I have to agree with you on this one, Mayor Beamish. I have experienced times in my professional life where there would be no evidence of it. It was conversations. I was being bullied. I can't prove it, but it was very damaging to me emotionally. And you should work for an employer that respects that. And you should believe that your staff are professionals and aren't going to make this claim about anybody unless it's legit, because they are professionals. And that is a big, like, who does that? Who comes out and says, I feel bullied by this person, this organization, this whatever, if they don't honestly feel it? Like, I'm comfortable faring on the side of this statement as it is.
Okay, Councillor Dindrat.
I think, Mary, this is actually very challenging. I agree. If it wasn't challenging, we wouldn't have work BC reinforcing all this about harassment. Harassment, obviously, when you feel, you don't need to prove. But what I'm saying is, if you, let's say that as a consequence of you felt harassed, you say, well, therefore, we are not going to be working with these people anymore. That it's taking the harassment to another layer. And I think in this regard, there has to be a little bit of more understanding what happens, right? Because it could be convenient for me just to say, well, I don't like this person, I feel harassed, and therefore I don't want to work with this organization anymore. I think it depends if it's something personal that I can, let's say I'm a liaison, I don't want to liaise anymore, that's a different thing. But when there's a relationship with the town, I don't know, I feel a little bit, I think that has to be investigated to this point, not investigated the person that feel harassed, but to be able to hear the other side. That's my point.
Councillor Ladwig.
Well, I think the point is that any government, you have a responsibility, like take me and what I do for a living during the day. I can't just not work with fishermen. That's what we do. But if someone is being disrespectful, then as an individual, I don't have to deal with that individual. Like we as a government still have to deal with that organization, but that staff member does not have to prove that they were being bullied. They just wouldn't engage with that individual or organization anymore. We as a government need to. That staff member can be removed and should be out of a work safe environment situation.
I've always found that, and I've had people who would not deal with me, but I've always made sure that they had an avenue for service. So they've never been cut out of the process. They just will not engage with me because, well, whatever their preference is, and that's fine. But I've always said, look, when so-and-so comes in the office, make sure they get service, but don't call on me because that will end up in a problem. And looking at that. So Councillor Ladwig?
So I totally agree with you, Mayor Beamish. Having said that, the actual bullet, never mind taking out Councillor DeAndrade's amendment, it doesn't actually say that. The
I
bullet,
agree. Yeah.
So perhaps the bullet needs to be reworded just entirely.
Basically, it's saying you have the right to disengage.
Yes.
Yeah. But I do get that from it, but not where but you don't have to disengage with evidence. You can feel bullied and say, back off, you're harassing me, I'm not prepared to deal with you anymore. And you can feel threatened and you can feel that, and you can disengage right then and there and not proceed. Now that whether or not that doesn't mean that a person does not have the right of access to service.
Okay.
It just means that individually, one-on-one, I'm not going to engage with you.
Yeah.
And we have to support that statement. Yeah. Councilor DeAndrade?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with you. I think
Yeah.
in many ways, that's what I was trying to say in terms of evidence of the relationship being cut, which in this way are service.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so perhaps we just, do we need a line on that? I almost
Well,
feel,
I think we have it in the bullying harassment provisions of WorkSafe BC.
okay.
I think it's there.
I just want to
But
make sure that
So
a
the amendment,
relationship
yeah.
with an organization or even an individual.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, thank you.
So, but there is an amendment there, and that amendment there has to deal with the numbering system. So, okay, so and then all the numbers from that point on need to be changed. And we're going over then to, I've got on the current numbering of 6.1, which will be changed. There seems to be a line suggesting there's some change in members are thoroughly familiar with the purpose of the content.
Sorry, Mayor Beamish.
Yeah. Yes.
So can you make it clear? So we are not including that line.
We're not including that final statement, the
I just
underlying
want to-
statement. That's correct. Yeah. I'm just trying to see what's happened here. The code is most effective when members are thoroughly familiar with the purpose and content of the code, embrace its promotion. Must be just a typo in there somewhere. Under the current 6.1, which is on
Yeah.
page 92.
I think it's a typo.
Yeah. And then under legislation, here it's got workers' compensation, it's got a section number. I want to just go back to the model code and see what it says in there as to whether it's because it has legislation in the back of it too. And what's changed there. It says section 51A of the Workers' Compensation Act, and this one says section 15(1)I, is that of the Workers' Compensation Act? Is not the different sections, that's what's happened there? You see under legislation, there's it says 115(1). I'm not sure if that's the name, but I'm reading the fine small print that's been.
The other version.
115.1.
115(1). Is that I or
A.
Well, it's supposed to be A, is what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
So make sure that it reflects A. And council has overall responsibility, attachments, providing oversight. Okay, so. Okay, let's go back to the beginning, and we have a motion on the floor that the model bylaw be adopted, and we, Councilor DeAndrade, you had your.
Yes, because I ended up not writing that because I thought maybe a question. One thing in all this process on the procedures, right? Because a member wished to make a formal complaint, blah, blah, blah. But I think my question is who gets to make the decision? Is there a panel? Who sits in this panel? I think it's important to understand, is it staff? Is it counselors? How do we, if there's, in the
Right
future?
Right now it's counselors, self-enforcing members should view the code as a guidance. So I think right now it would be counselors collectively. So a complaint would be made to council, made to counselors and likely an in-camera type process and dealt with sort of thing.
Okay, so we don't, so we are the panel, we are the.
We are the panel. Yeah.
Okay,
But, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to accept a motion that says that the model code of conduct be amended by adding in the introduction the words to help achieve good governance in paragraph 2, and that to add under standards of conduct, under 2 standards of conduct, bullet number 3, the words through the town's strategic plan and policies. And in section 2.4, bullet number 2, to add the word and make decisions in the best interest of the community. And in the 2 bullets down, add members will recognize the difference between constructive discourse and discourage that and discourse that is indecent, insulting, abusive, or consistent with bullying and harassment as defined by WorkSafe BC.
Mayor, if I may
Yeah.
interrupt, we decided to go back as the sentence, members will recognize the difference between constructive discourse and inappropriate and or offense dialogue as defined by Work BC,
Okay.
right? I
Okay.
think that's what it is. I don't
Okay.
know if they define inappropriate behavior offense dialogue, but I know they define harassment, right? Which, but they say here, discourse that is indecent, abusive. I wrote this a while ago. I don't
All right,
remember.
okay.
I copied from the legislation, actually.
Okay, so corporate officer will capture that. Amendment number 5, add in the words and the public. Amendment number 6, add in the words will not ask nor be asked by staff or any member. And delete the words or infer that staff will disregard. So, yeah, okay.
No, not disregard. Disregard has to be there.
Or infer that staff, okay. Yeah. Number 7, we're going to add 3.3, members who bring forward concerns about wrongdoing will be treated fairly and with high standards of integrity. And amendment number 8 will be to renumber, starting with the second 3.3, which will become, well, interactions with staff will become 4. And the bullet under that will become 4.1. And consequential numbering changes will occur after that point in the document. And that's it. Did I miss anything?
Mayor,
Councilor
sorry,
DeAndrade?
I was just wondering if we should, just to be clear on the compliance, that I don't know if it's clear to me because you say it will be discussed in a closed committee of the whole, but it doesn't feel like who is the decision maker. I don't know if there's anything that could clarify that, you know, it's by council members, right? Because we have council, we have staff. So, I mean, I don't know, is the staff involved in this discussion? Is this, or maybe just involved, but they're not decision maker? I don't know. It would be, I think it's important to clarify.
Yes.
You have some wording around that?
No, well, I haven't thought about, well, I was more curious what panel is consistent. Perhaps, you know, if we use the word panel. Members and other.
Is there a, there's no provision in it, so that,
Oh. Maybe the last, they say the last provision is on 7.4 is an opportunity to be heard in a subsequent closed committee of the whole meeting, but heard, what does it mean? Is if anyone, who is the decision maker?
yeah, well, right now it's the council as a whole, unless we have an integrity officer.
Maybe we have a C clause and we say, the council, or, well, what is a committee, right?
Yeah.
So that will go to council?
Council is it's a, yeah.
It's, okay, so anything that specify that.
Okay, I would like to make one other change. Existing 6.2. I'd like to say council will review the code annually and consider amendments from members and will update the code as necessary. Any objection to that? Okay, so that then becomes amendment number 9.
Mayor, did we make an amendment on the point who will be the decision maker? Did we insert that?
No,
Because-
right now it's all of council. I think we should just see how that goes. Yeah, Councilor Ludwig?
Actually, I might go back on my agreement on that. It just, I'm a little worried, like what would really change on an annual basis? And I'm worried this will become a piece of work every year that like, look how long it took us to get this one. Like, I wonder if it should be every 3 years or once a term or.
Well, you could do it just like the legislation is going to say. You're going to amend it at the beginning of each new term.
I think that would be probably better.
Okay. At the commitments. How about we make it something, how about we really specific, well, at the commitment, at the beginning.
Well, this is already in place that I believe I read this somewhere that every new council has to revise. But
That's the
right?
proposed legislation.
Yeah.
We'll get that, yeah.
But I wonder that council may review the code as seems necessary. So we are not stipulating time, and anytime someone can come and say, I would like to revise the code for this reason.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity to sit down and say, okay, let's take a look at that, beginning of the term. So the new council comes in, it's a way to orient them as to the code and a way to make sure it works for them. So, and they can change that, but at least we know now that it will be reviewed at the beginning of the next term of office. Yeah. Okay, now, corporate officer, do you have any questions about what those amendments were?
I got all of them, except I'm a little uncertain about whether we've added the word annually or at the beginning of each new council.
No, I would begin it at the beginning of each term.
Okay, so that's the 9th amendment, and I think we're on the same page for all of them.
Okay, so do you have a motion to Councilor Dindrad?
I just want to ask one more thing, because I had initially put as part of the legislation, this is actually a question for the corporate officer, which I believe she may be able to answer. At the beginning, at my first edit, I put PIDA, right, which is the Public Interest Disclosure Act, and they would eventually, I think this is the whistleblower legislation, but because they are talking about making a phased approach, at this point, I don't understand if municipal government has already been included or will be included later. So if you could just maybe look at that from your lawyer's lens, because it might be maybe the whistleblower legislation should be here, right?
I don't think that the municipalities are currently included in that legislation, that particular legislation, but next time we amend it, it can be, it doesn't matter whether it's in this document or not. If the legislation includes us, we will be included. So it doesn't matter whether we put it in this document or not, it would still apply.
I know, Mayor, but why do we have a list of,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if we're not currently included in that legislation, then when it becomes legislation, it would apply. So, yeah. Let's not try to bring things in that might happen in the future. The same as the province may adopt legislation that tells us we have to have a code of conduct. That would apply too.
Mayor, the reason, sorry, just to complete this point, is not that it's in the future, because if you look at the ombudsman office, like the website, it gives the impression that we are already included. That's why I was asking when a corporate officer has the opportunity, just to understand that if we are ready, and if it's not, fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll see what I can find out.
Okay, and you can bring that forward to council again with a further amendment if necessary, because there are other legislations that it would apply to. I don't like lists because lists change. Okay, all in favor of now who's proposing these amendments? Councilor D'Andrade proposing the amendments, seconded by Councilor Ladwig. Okay, all in favor of the amendments to the resolution. Okay. None opposed. All in favor of the resolution that now would be to adopt the draft model code of conduct as amended.
Oh, that's,
Okay.
sorry. Mayor, I'm confused. Why are we voting twice?
Well, because that's the motion that was on the floor. The motion on the floor was to adopt the model code of conduct. We are amending the model code of conduct with the amendments you made.
So maybe I voted something that I didn't want.
You just voted for the amendments to that you proposed.
Oh, but now we are voting on the amendments that we discussed as a group.
We voted on that, yes. And now we're voting on Councilor Crowell's motion, seconded by Councilor Lumley, to adopt the code of conduct as amended.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Rebecca?
Yes, I just want to be certain that council understands how they've voted, because I hear a question in Councilor D'Andrade. So my understanding of the motion that you just voted on was the motion moved by Councilor D'Andrade, seconded by Councilor Ladwig, that the council code of conduct be amended as follows, and I will make a bullet list of all those amendments that the mayor read out. The motion that he is now calling the question on was moved by Councilor Crowell and seconded by Councilor Lumley, that the report titled Council Code of Conduct Update be received, that the Council Code of Conduct be adopted as amended, and further that third-party facilitators be contracted. Is that also that third part also part of this motion?
For we haven't got that far yet, but that is for some training. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do that with the next council?
Good question. CAO might have an opinion on that, but so for now, I will just stop this motion at the point of that the report titled Council Code of Conduct Update be received, and that the Council Code of Conduct be adopted as amended.
As amended. Okay, yes.
We'll
Okay.
end it there for now.
And then let's go to the corporate officer, CAO, regarding training. Should we engage somebody to train now in this process, or you want to save that to the new council? Or do it then again?
Training, you're talking about training for council, right?
Training for council, yeah. The resolution.
Council, I don't recall that you have anything scheduled training wise for this year, so we certainly could identify that. Certainly something that we'll incorporate as part of the orientation of the new council. But it's really, I don't consider the process you've gone through to prepare it.
The resolution says that third-party facilitators be contracted to deliver governance and respectful workplace training sessions for council. Councilor Ladwig?
I'm going to go out on one here and say no. And the reason I say this is because I think we're actually doing pretty good these days, and it is
Yeah.
taxpaying dollars. If
Yeah.
all of a sudden we have a big flare up at some point, maybe we'll revisit that. But right now, I feel like we're functioning quite well. And so why do it if we don't need to right now, considering we've only got less than a year? So.
Councillor Crowell?
I certainly agree with Councillor Ladwig. We went through the workshop with a facilitator to,
Yeah.
Get us to this point. We've gone through this document literally letter by letter, and we've just voted to accept it. So, amongst us, we've agreed, I believe, to endorse the framework of this document and the intent and purpose of the document. And it would make sense, from a cost point of view, to wait until there's a new council to bring in. The only thing I would suggest is that we, make the students on council aware of this because they're not in attendance.
This will come to council for adoption. I think this is actually a special meeting of council.
It is.
Does this have to come forward to council again, corporate officer? I guess it doesn't.
No, it does not. You have approved it, and it's not a committee of the whole, so this is a.
You're right, this becomes law. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Policy. Okay, yes, I agree. Once it is out there, we will inform the students on council. Yeah. Yeah, Councilor Diendrad?
Mayor, I just noticed, and I would like feedback, because in our policy, it talks about, that's 7.4 here, now it will be 8.4. To ensure procedural and administrative fairness, a member who is alleged to have violated any provision of the code, blah, 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 shall have a minimum of 1 week or the time between two consecutive committees. I noticed that the other, the town of Ladesmith says minimum of 2 weeks. So I wonder if 1 week, if people are busy or something, if 1 week is too little time to present something in writing, right? If you're busy or something, I don't know. It's just because they say 2 weeks, so perhaps we could amend instead of saying minimum of 1 week, 2 weeks.
Try it and see. We're gonna find a number of reasons to change this over time. I think we have to work with it for a bit. Yeah. But listen, I want to thank you, Councilor Diendrad, for your thorough reading of the draft, and I have no problems with the changes made because I don't think they impacted on the intent of the whole process. I think they maybe clarified it all. So that I think we're good there. I think we've moved forward. We have a code of conduct, so when the province brings the legislation out, we're already in compliance. And the next thing will be to comply with the following process, the subsequent process, and that will be the review by the next council. And I think that's important as well. So that being said, I would invite anybody at this point in time to come forward with any inquiries and make yourself known to the corporate officer. Now, yeah, go ahead.
If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. No questions, Mayor Beamish.
Okay. Thank you. The next meeting of council will be held on Tuesday, February 15th, 7 p.m. And I would take a motion of adjournment. Councillor Ladwig, Councillor Diendrad, all in favor of adjourning. Thank you, everybody. I don't even know what time it is. I think it's Monday, though. So, yeah, no. Is it Monday or Tuesday? It's Tuesday. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Councilor Diendrad, go ahead.
I just want to thank council for being patient. And actually, I think we exercise a lot of the code of conduct right now.
Yeah.
Being tolerant to, and I understand certain people think differently. I see certain things that other people don't see. So I think it's a good balance instead of we being like irritated or don't. So I really appreciate the consideration. I think we together can make it better. So thank you.
Okay, and I think this is actually an important legislative milestone for the town, adopting this policy. A lot of communities are struggling with this. They can't get this far. And I think we've done this. It's an important piece of work. I would actually encourage through the CAO to have Elizabeth put out not a media release necessarily, but to identify this in the newsletter to the community that council has adopted a code of conduct, because I'm pretty certain that we will be the first government on the coast to have done so. And it's an important milestone to have accomplished during this term of office, to put this in place and to put it in place in a cooperative way of discussion. So I think we can all feel just